In 1929, in the heart of southeastern Nigeria, voices rose from the markets and the farms. Voices of women who had been silent too long. These women were more than traders. They were the backbone of their families and communities. Every day, they worked hard to earn a living and keep their homes running. One morning, a rumor spread through the market. People whispered that the white colonial officers planned to count the women, just as they had counted the men earlier. Everyone knew what came after counting. Taxes. The women were shocked. Their husbands had already been taxed heavily. Now the government wanted to tax them too. That was too much. They had never been asked for their opinions. They had never chosen the local chiefs who worked for the British. A local official, loyal to the colonial rulers, confirmed the news. He proudly said the counting would begin next week, following orders from the white district officer. The women looked at one another. The fire of resistance was growing in their hearts. That night, under the full moon, the women gathered around a fire in the village square. They came from nearby towns, Owerri, Calabar, Bonny, and more. Some walked, others paddled across rivers in canoes. They brought with them anger, strength, and stories. One woman stood up and spoke. She reminded the others how their husbands had suffered under colonial taxes. Now it was their turn, and they could not stay silent. She said, "When you break a woman's cooking pot, the fire will burn you." The women clapped, sang, and danced. They performed a traditional war dance, strong, proud, and full of meaning. Their message was clear. They would not allow this injustice to continue. At sunrise, thousands of women, dressed in white wrappers and red headscarves, marched toward the courthouse where the British officials worked. They carried wooden pestles, drums, and calabashes, but they did not bring weapons. Their tools were their voices, their songs, and their unity. They gathered around the courthouse and performed a powerful ritual known as sitting on a man. It was a traditional way for women to protest a man's bad behavior. They sang songs that mocked the chiefs and colonial officers. They danced in circles, drummed, and clapped, making sure their voices were heard. Inside the courthouse, the British officers were confused. One asked, "What is this noise?" Another replied, "It's not noise. It's Nigeria waking up." But the government responded with force. Colonial soldiers arrived with guns. The women raised their hands to show they had come in peace. They continued to sing, calling for justice and asking the chiefs to be removed. Then, a shot rang out. One woman fell to the ground, then another. Screams filled the air. Dust rose as people ran in fear. Chaos took over the peaceful protest. In total, about 50 women had fallen before the gun, but they were never forgotten. Their courage lit the path.
The news reached every corner of Nigeria.
Investigations were launched. The colonial system was shaken. The warrant chiefs, who had been chosen by the British without the people's consent, began to lose their power. In many places, women's councils were formed to give women a voice in how their communities were run. The women who stood up in 1929 were not just traders, not just wives or mothers. They were guardians of the land, defenders of dignity. What happened in 1929 was no riot. It was a revolution.